my name's Brandon. I am the VP, COO, kind of run all of operations here at HempLucid. I am the guy who handles all of the WMS, ERP, software stuff, basically top to bottom. That's me. We sell out of two different Shopify channels primarily. We also do a little bit of white labeling, sell for some random clients across the country. We operate out of one warehouse. So there's been a few big challenges I've run into with various pieces of software. So in our industry and with our organic certification, we do have to have pretty stringent lock code tracking for everything that we do. And what I was running into with a bunch of other software is either they didn't handle it or they didn't handle it well. Like a lot of that information was technically there within the system, but it wasn't very visible. So if ever came time for an audit, the process took 5 times longer than it needed to. One of the other problems I run into is just like a bunch of bugs where technically stuff was in there, but data got corrupted, and I ended up going back and having to check hard copies to cross-verify everything. And part of an inspection should have taken me 15 or 20 minutes, might take me 2 or 3 hours because I got to go side of the system and handle it. One of the big things that's been very nice with Fulfil that has been an issue with other things is accurately tracking landed costs for all of our products, having costing across everything straight through the system. Anybody who's had to handle any of this on their own knows it can be a little bit of a nightmare making your own sheets and everything. That's one of the things that other pieces of software we've used have just not handled very well, unfortunately. It was really good at helping you figure out forecasting, getting your inventory planned out, figuring out what your sales velocities are, kind of putting everything in one spot so that you don't have to go build out a bunch of sheets, do a bunch of analysis on your own. I mean, obviously you still want to verify and cross-check everything, but everything's there, easily able to find. It makes your life super easy. Also, if you ever run into any issues, you have to go back, check what into a work order, what went to a customer. You can easily backtrace every ingredient that's used for every single product. Oh, this customer got this product, which had A, B, C, and D ingredients in it, and I received all those on these different POs on these dates. And it's like you can just tie everything together so perfectly that, like from like a compliance standpoint, it is a game changer. We've used a few pieces of software over the years since I've been with HempLucid. I've been here for a little over 7 years now. Most of them are some little bit smaller ones. Some of them just didn't have the capabilities that we needed, the flexibility on the manufacturing side. In our industry, we're doing a lot of liquid manufacturing, so our inputs can vary from batch to batch. That was a hang up for a lot of people because they wanted to make a bike and, 2 wheels and 1 frame, and we're not making a bike. And so it's like sometimes I've got 2.5 wheels and their systems didn't quite like doing that and didn't know how to handle it. So that was a really big part of it that kind of helped drive us to Fulfil, and that and the ability to just backtrace everything that's taken place. There's a link in there for everything. You can click through to find the PO you got something from, to see what customers everything went through to. It makes your life a million times easier than trying to jump between 5 different pieces of software. Check this spreadsheet over here. I'm going to go look in Google Drive for that. I'm going to go look through my email here. Like Fulfil has the ability to tie all of that together just to keep your life simple and easy. That way, if you ever need to tie in a new person, they don't have to come asking you all the time, hey, where do I go find this? Where do I look for this? Like, you teach them the gist of how the software works, what they need to look for, like in maybe naming conventions or that kind of thing. And they should be up and running pretty quickly. And it's pretty idiot proof. It's got tracking on everything that you do. So if you make a change in the system, something gets messed up, you can go back and see who made that change, when that change got made. You can identify any errors, just data entry errors, things that happened along the way. It just makes your life a lot simpler. My experience with Fulfil has been great, like on a customer service standpoint. I've worked with other companies that have pretty decent customer service as far as, people will be willing to get back to me, are communicative, they're nice. But the problem resolution side of things is not always up to par. And when you're talking about stuff that's managing your software, that's managing your inventory, that's sending inventory to your different stores, that's keeping you compliant for different certifications, you really want things to work properly. And so if anything does pop up, having somebody there who's willing to help to get it fixed and make sure you're good is very important. And that has been one of the things that has definitely been a bigger headache with a bunch of the companies that we worked with, excuse me. On the surface, nice people, but sometimes the problem resolution just took way too long. And sometimes they broke stuff they didn't know how to fix, to be frank. We worked with a software, they pushed a software update that deleted 6 months of our production records. And they couldn't find a fix for it. So I had to go back to all my hard copies for everything. And, that's not the kind of experience you want to look for, obviously. Fulfil offers really extensive release notes anytime they push an update. So that, and if anything is going to be changing, as long as you're staying on top of reading it, you know what's changing, you know why it's changing, you know how it's changing. And if you need to adjust process, it's there for you. So you're not making your life more miserable. Fulfil's implementation process is, let's say it is very thorough. Beyond the needs that I actually need, which it is a breath of fresh air in a lot of instances because they're asking questions, the team's asking me questions, getting things lined up to make sure that they have processes built out that match my particular needs. Whereas I'm just going, okay, give me the software and I'll play around and make it work. They're going, well, how are you wanting to use it? And they're going, okay, well, if this is what you're planning on doing, or this is how you have been doing it, here's what we can do within the software, and here's some ways we can set it up on the back end to make sure it's doing exactly what you want, and you're not trying to work around how you think the system works. And sometimes that means, hey, this is the process you've been doing. We can do that better for you. I can save you time. I can do this. We can make these changes. So I'd say the key thing that I would say more than anything is incredibly thorough. Very good at asking what I need, what my processes are, what I want to get out of it. And then just asking a million questions to make sure it's fully understood and everything is implemented the way that you want it to run. As far as that goes, that is not something I've run into with other companies. A lot of people we've worked with kind of are like, okay, let's import some data. You're good to go. You start playing around. You figure out how things work. You realize, okay, this didn't pull in the way I thought it was going to pull in. This process isn't flowing the way that I thought it would flow. The sales pitch that they gave me on this particular module doesn't really cover my use case. It's just enough different that I thought this was going to work and it's broken. That's one of the things where it's you don't run into that with Fulfil. You know exactly what you're going to be getting out of it because you've talked through the process top to bottom, receiving, making purchase orders, doing jobs to run, make inventory, how you're selling stuff to your different customers, how everything's being tracked, how you're, delineating who gets which product. If you have multiple versions of the same thing on hand, hey, I need this wholesale customer to get a product as a Best Buy that's out a year and a half, where my retail customers might be able to get it, 6 months out. And so just making sure that all the way along the process who's supposed to be getting what's supposed to be happening, and just making it so no matter who you plug in, it's extremely hard for them to accidentally mess something up. And if they do, again, you've got all that tracking in there so that you can get that sorted out. The big differentiator for me is just the ease, because it's not like a lot of these other softwares don't necessarily have capabilities in a lot of ways. It's just the ease, the time saving. Also, just make you're confident knowing things that are going to work properly. I ran into a software where they kept having conversion error issues. So we might be buying something in kilograms and consuming it in grams, and all of a sudden it thinks my product cost me $2 million to make when it cost me $2. That's an actual issue I ran into. It's okay. And depending on when you catch it, you have to go back and okay, let's go fix this. For how long has this been going on for? Oh, I've got 3 months of inventory that is massively misvalued for me. That's another one of those elements that Fulfil just handles perfectly. My last organic inspection that I did with Fulfil, I was able to do the entire thing, the software side of things. We were going back and checking records and everything in a little under 45 minutes. And my most recent piece of software, that took me about 4 hours. Something I can do in Fulfil in probably a minute might take me 5 outside of Fulfil. It's one of those things where in little chunks, it doesn't feel like a lot, but in circumstances, it certainly adds up a lot. And on that front, also, it's just like the ability to plug somebody into it. Once they know how things are working or supposed to work, you kind of taught them the flows, they can pick it up very easily. And the time saving on not having to deal with user error issues is pretty massive because, I used to spend a lot of time tracking down issues that were caused by other people who were using the software because the software didn't behave the way they thought it was going to behave. Um, and without all the tracking that Fulfil has natively, sometimes it was quite a bit of a headache to figure out what was going on, where things went wrong, and why my count's off here, and well, who did that? And I mean, that amount of savings is really hard to quantify, but it is significant. All of my experiences working with everybody top to bottom at Fulfil have been top notch. Everybody is super nice, is super professional, super respectful. They're very good at identifying what your need is, identifying what the problem is, letting you know timelines on getting stuff fixed, implemented, done, and following through. Like I've never run into a hiccup on that front ever. And again, that's pretty rare when you're dealing with software that has as much complexity as Fulfil can bring to the table. And it has the ability to scale and do so many things that it's like, okay, maybe I don't need this right now for my stage of where I'm at with my business. But 5 years down the line, this is still going to work when I'm doing 10x the volume, where a lot of other software you're going to run into, it works today, and you're going to have to switch over in 2 or 3 or 5 years. And anybody who's ever had to do that switchover process knows it's not the funnest. It's very time consuming. Um, and it's much better, much easier if you can just set it, forget it, and just like run with something that's working properly from the get go. And Fulfil is one